Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you tonight for this next premiere video. It's for the next Judas Priest album review for Painkiller, the 1990 record. I got a chance to listen to for the 12th studio album, see what I was going to think of this record overall. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for all 10 tracks on this record. And this is technically the last album to feature Rob Halford in it until he makes his return in 2005 with what I believe the 15th album. But the next albums will be the Tim Ripper Owens albums that I will be reviewing, Jugulator and Demolition. So with that being said, I'm going to discuss what I listened to for Painkiller and let you know my thoughts on this record overall. So let's dive into this album review now. Starting off, Painkiller is a great track. I really enjoyed this one. This has a lot of heavy riffs. Rob Halford's singing in it is great, and I love his screaming vocals, the high-pitched screech screaming vocals that I really did enjoy. Sounded really good in this track, and definitely rocks for sure. 5 out of 5. Hell Patrol is another great track that I enjoyed. I think Rob Halford did pretty well with his vocals in this track, and the drumming and guitar work was pretty epic in this. Along with the last track, Painkiller, the title track, did have great drumming and guitar work, and it was well produced and mixed. But overall, Hell Patrol is going to get a 5 out of 5 as well. All Guns Blazing is another great song I enjoyed. Rob Halford's singing is amazing in this track. I like the verses and chorus when it comes in. Sounds pretty strong and stays afloat to keep this track in quite an enjoyable listen for sure. So 5 out of 5 for All Guns Blazing. Leather Rebel is another strong track I enjoyed. Definitely rocks for sure. I believe this track is another personal favorite of mine. I think Rob Halford sung this pretty well, and drumming wise, execution wise, and guitar wise, it did pretty well. And it did not disappoint, this track, for the fourth song on the record. And the verses and the chorus were pretty strong and stayed afloat to keep the song progressing and getting even better. Metal Meltdown is a strong track for how it sounds. Reminds me of a YouTuber by this name that, well, we're not going to discuss about him, but you kind of get the gist. Metal Meltdown, the song itself, is a strong track. I really enjoyed how Rob Halford was singing this track, but overall, execution-wise, this track did really good. It definitely rocks for sure. I think drumming and execution-wise, it did pretty well too. 5 out of 5. Nightcrawler is another great song on this record. It's very enjoyable for the runtime it went for, and I really enjoyed how it executed well with Rob Halford's singing vocals, and his screech screaming vocals sounded pretty good. So definitely was a headbanger too. 5 out of 5. Between the Hammer and the Anvil is another strong track on this record that I personally enjoyed. It's a 5 out of 5 for sure. It is a pretty lengthy track, but not as lengthy as the next song or the last track on this record. But other than that, pretty strong track. It did hold its own. Rob Halford's singing was amazing in this, and just overall, this song kicked ass. So 5 out of 5. A Touch of Evil is a strong track for how it sounded. I mean, it was a little slow-paced, but it still sounded good for how it was. I enjoyed this track, and it kept progressing and getting even better as you keep going through the track and listening through it for 5 minutes and I believe 45 seconds. So it is pretty lengthy, but it's pretty strong. 5 out of 5. Definitely rocks for sure. Rob Halford's singing is great in this track. Battle Hymn Instrumental is a strong track too. It's an instrumental track, so you're in for 57 seconds of this track before getting into the closing track, One Shot at Glory. But we'll talk about One Shot at Glory in a second. But overall, the guitar riffs in this track are pretty epic for sure. And this track did rock for sure. I think when it started off very weird and no noise at first, and then it starts kicking in with the guitar riffs in like the 10-20 second time period in the track. But overall, 5 out of 5. One Shot at Glory, the closing track to the record, is the best track on this record as well. It started off great and it ended great. And I think this is one of my favorite songs to close out the record and close out this chapter with Rob Halford for a little bit, because I know he left the band in 1992 after their tour with the Painkiller tour. But overall, One Shot at Glory, fantastic track to end the record, and definitely my personal favorite song, 5 out of 5. Overall, production, mixing, and execution-wise, do I really love this record? Yep. It's probably my personal favorite album from Judas Priest. It's better than Screaming for Vengeance. It's better than British Steel. I personally think this is an excellent record and a great closing aspect. Well, great way for a send-off for Rob Halford, for him going on his own music venture with going into the band called Fight, I believe is the band that he went with for a little bit, and then he came back in 2005 for the 15 studio album. But other than that, from what I listened to, I think Judas Priest Painkiller, strong record, definitely rocks for sure. I highly recommend you check this album out, and if I were to give this album a score, a perfect 10 out of 10. It is an awesome record. I had no complaints with this record. I enjoyed it from start to finish, and for almost 46 minutes, you're in for quite a banger of an album. Rob Halford does sing very well on this track, and it's got really great production in it, and great drumming and guitar work, and mixing wise, it did very well, this record. It held its own, and it stayed afloat, and every track on here was definitely kicking ass. So pretty much, sorry if I said so again, pretty much 10 out of 10 for Judas Priest Painkiller. I will return to you tomorrow for the Jugulator album review. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this review tonight for Painkiller by Judas Priest, their 12th studio album. And thank you guys for watching. Have a good night.